Stop explaining, start commanding. Every time you explain yourself, you surrender power. Not because you're wrong or weak, but because you speak like someone seeking permission, not someone who commands. The moment you justify your choices, you step off the throne. You're no longer the decision maker. You're pleading for approval. Machiavelli understood this better than anyone. He didn't write to make you liked. He wrote so you could survive, dominate, and rule without apology. I used to believe honesty bred trust. I thought clear explanations would rally people to my side. But the more I spoke, the more they dissected my words. What I thought was connection was their strategy. What I believed was trust became their blueprint to break me. Words aren't always bridges. Sometimes they're slow self-destruction. You think you're leading, but really, you're pleading to be understood. Here's the truth. You don't need to be understood. You need to be felt. Walk into a room and shift the atmosphere without speaking, not by performing power, but by stopping performance entirely. Let them guess. Let them worry. Let them sit in silence, waiting for a voice that never comes. The most powerful man in the room isn't the loudest. It's the one who makes others hold their breath for his next move. If you ever lost yourself justifying your worth, only to be ignored, stop. No more defending. No more apologizing. From now on, let silence be your language. Let presence be your declaration. If this message stirs something in you, if it awakens a part of you tired of being overlooked, comment below. I don't explain myself anymore. And if you're ready to master the art of silent control, the way Machiavelli intended, hit subscribe. Not because we need you, but because you realize it's time to need yourself. Part 1. The need to be understood is the shackle of the powerless. The moment you crave understanding, you hand your enemies a weapon. It doesn't feel like weakness. It feels noble, honest, human. You explain to build trust, to show transparency, to be real. But every word becomes a foothold, a clue, a crack in your armor they didn't earn but now possess. I learned this the hard way. In meetings, I spoke with clarity. In relationships, I offered reasons. In doubt, I opened up. And I bled for it. Because no one preserves what you reveal, they analyze, interpret, and weaponize it. The more I spoke, the more predictable I became. The more I shared, the easier I was to dismantle. They didn't respect my honesty. They studied it, mapped it, and moved accordingly. Machiavelli warned, he who reveals himself is no longer feared, only analyzed, and eventually replaced. You don't need to be understood. You need to be effective. You need to be felt without being dissected. Think of Caesar crossing the Rubicon. He didn't explain. He didn't ask. He moved and Rome adjusted. That's power. It doesn't ask for agreement. It forces recalibration. Look around. In politics, the ones who explain too much fall first. In business, the silent strategists become legends. In relationships, the unpredictable hold the reins. Unpredictability builds fear, and fear lasts longer than love. Want respect? Stop narrating every move. Let your decisions echo without commentary. Let your actions speak in languages words can't reach. Steve Jobs didn't list 10 reasons the iPhone would change the world. He walked on stage, held up one object, said one sentence, and the room forgot how to breathe. That's presence. That's power. Not pleading to be understood, but daring to be undeniable. From this moment on, burn the habit of over-explaining. Let your boundaries stand without apology. Let your absence speak louder than your presence ever did. If this message struck a chord, comment below. I choose presence over explanation. And if you believe content like this shifts how men carry themselves, support this mission, not for charity, but to fortify the message. Part 2. Silence is ambiguity, and ambiguity is chaos. The less they know about your next move, the more they fear it. In this game, fear isn't built on facts. It's built on uncertainty. When people can't read you, they create stories about you. And those stories, they're always more extreme than reality. Machiavelli knew this. A man feared because of uncertainty is more powerful than one love for transparency. Love fades. Fear lingers. I used to fill every silence with words, thinking I was being clear. what I was really doing. Making myself disposable. My transparency became their advantage. They anticipated my moves before I made them. Then I did something radical. I stopped, not out of weakness, out of discipline. At first, it felt unnatural. But soon, the room began to lean in. They wondered. They watched. And with every moment I withheld, I shifted the frame. Because ambiguity is chaos. And in chaos, the one who controls the silence controls the game. When people don't know your intent, they overcompensate, hesitate, paralyze themselves with doubt. And in that hesitation, you gain leverage without lifting a finger. In military strategy, this is called asymmetry. You never meet the enemy where they expect. You never attack how they prepared. You use silence, misdirection, stillness, until they collapse under their own assumptions. Think of water. It doesn't break the stone by force. It erodes it through patience, consistency, and refusal to reveal its shape. That's how you lead. Not with noise, with restraint. So stop giving them the map. Let them guess. Let them burn energy interpreting shadows, while you remain focused, clear, untouched. In a world addicted to noise, be the one who makes silence terrifying. If this resonates, comment below. Let them guess. And if you're ready to master Machiavellian control, subscribe, not to follow noise, but to command silence. Part 3. Words can be daggers turned inward. Every explanation is a step off the throne. You may think you're being reasonable, but really, you're handing out weapons. Machiavelli warned, "He who opens himself for examination invites dismantling." In the court of power, there are no fair judges, only opportunists. You give them a reason, they turn it into a condition. You give them context, they question your competence. Because once you explain, you're no longer commanding, you're requesting. And requests don't move the world. Declarations do. History doesn't remember reasons. It remembers ruptures. Martin Luther didn't ask permission to nail his theses. He nailed them. No speeches, no justifications, just impact. Yet most men spend years justifying, explaining, pleading to be understood. You explain your decisions to your partner, hoping for love. You explain your choices to your team, hoping for trust. You explain your dreams to friends, hoping for validation. And when they doubt you, you feel betrayed. But you shouldn't. You gave them the rope. I've done it. In meetings, I armed myself with data, thinking clarity would win support. Instead, they dissected me, not understand, but to win. That's when I realized, you don't explain power. You prove it by acting. A general doesn't justify a surprise attack. He lets the smoke explain. Steve Jobs didn't defend the iPhone. He held it up. That's presence. That's power. Not pleading to be understood, but daring to be undeniable. From now on, let your silence become tension. Let your absence speak louder than your presence. Let them realize they don't know you. And that's why they can't control you. If this message struck a chord, comment below. I lead with outcomes, not explanations. And if you're learning to wield silence like a weapon, subscribe, not to follow, but to command. Part 4. Let consequences be the explanation. Real power doesn't explain. It acts, and lets the aftermath speak. A lion doesn't justify the hunt. A storm doesn't ask permission. They strike, and the world adapts. Most men mistake visibility for strength. They narrate their thoughts, hoping for approval. They over-explain and lose everything. Each sentence, a piece of armor removed. Each justification, a strategy exposed. Once they decode your reasoning, they'll reverse engineer your next move. That's why history doesn't remember speeches. It remembers earthquakes. Genghis Khan didn't write memos. He invaded. That's the energy you must carry. If your strategy needs to be explained before it's respected, it's not a strategy. It's a plea. So in your next negotiation, confrontation, or decision, say less. Let the weight of your silence do the lifting. Let their imagination fill the blanks. Because once people realize you don't explain, they start preparing differently. They speak softer. They hesitate. And in that hesitation, you control the room. If this resonates, comment below. My results are my only explanation. And if you're ready to leave without apology, subscribe, not to follow, but to dominate. Part 5. Power is maintained through mystery, not clarity. Predictability is the beginning of irrelevance. Once they map your steps, they stop watching. Once they understand your rhythm, they stop reacting. And when they stop reacting, you've lost control. True power lives in mystery. Putin rarely speaks, but when he does, the world leans in. Military generals never reveal strategies, only victories. CEOs must disclose just enough to keep the market guessing. Because what you can't predict, you fear. That's Machiavellian control. When you're unreadable, they assume you know more than you do. They overprepare. They second-guess. And suddenly, you're not a participant. You're the axis. Steve Jobs didn't post roadmaps. He let the silence before a launch seduce. And when he revealed the iPhone, it felt like lightning cracking the sky. That's how you move. With silence, with gravity, with presence so sharp it opens minds and shuts down opposition. Most men are addicted to overcommunication. They fear being misunderstood, so they narrate every move. Here's why I left. Here's what I'm planning. Here's what I meant. And in doing so, they strip themselves bare. Don't be that man. Be the one they whisper about. The one who never says too much. Who never reveals too early. Because mystery builds myth. And myth builds loyalty deeper than logic ever could. Next time someone asks, "What are you planning?" Smile, pause, and say nothing. Let your silence answer. If this resonates, comment below. I choose mystery over transparency. And if you're ready to reclaim your edge, subscribe. Not to follow noise, but to master silence. Part 6. The most powerful presence is the one that doesn't ask to be felt. Power doesn't beg for attention. It enters quietly and shifts everything around it. I used to believe presence meant visibility. That leadership required showing up everywhere, saying everything. But the more visible I became, the more they overlooked me. Familiarity doesn't breed respect. It breeds predictability. And predictability kills presence. But when I withdrew, not in fear, but discipline, everything changed. They leaned in. They listened harder. Because what's rare becomes sacred. Your voice should be rare. Your attention should be scarce. Power isn't in being everywhere. It's in being missed when you're not. In ancient courts, the emperor rarely spoke. But when he did, it was as if the heavens had opened. Because mystery elevates authority. Distance sharpens reverence. Stop flooding the room with your thoughts. Let them wonder. Let them feel the vacuum of your silence. Then, when you speak, let be a verdict. Not a plea, not an explanation, but law. If this resonates, comment below. I will be missed in my silence, not forgotten in my noise. And if you're learning that presence isn't about volume, but gravity, subscribe. Part 7. Don't be loud. Be inevitable. Real power doesn't knock. It enters. And everything rearranges itself around it. You don't get there by talking. You get there by delivering. Silently, relentlessly, until people stop questioning you and start bracing for your next move. Machiavelli said, "It is better be feared than loved." If you cannot be both, because fear obeys, love negotiates. You don't need to explain. You need to execute, and then disappear. Let the outcome speak. Let your silence ring louder than their noise. When others no longer ask, "What is he doing?" But what do we do now that he's done it? That's not influence. That's dominion. Be the tide. It doesn't ask permission to rise. It just does. An entire coast reshaped themselves in its rhythm. If this message moved you, comment below. I don't ask to be followed. I move and they adjust. And if you're ready to become unavoidable, subscribe. Not to grow louder, but to grow so undeniable that resistance becomes useless. Power is not explained. It's remembered. No one remembers your reasons. They remember what changed because of you. Caesar didn't leave footnotes. Napoleon didn't issue disclaimers. Jobs didn't poll the audience. They acted and let history adjust. You don't need to explain anymore. You need to move, to act, to decide, and let the aftermath prove your presence. If this spoke to you, comment below. I lead through consequence. And if you've supported this mission, thank you. You didn't just fund a video. You fortified a standard, a space where silence is weight, where quality is king. Subscribe if you haven't, not for us, but for the man you're becoming. Because power isn't explained, it's remembered. And now, so will you. Part 8, the art of unspoken dominance. Let them chase your silence. Power isn't seized. It's surrendered to you by those who can't decipher your next move. The moment you stop explaining, you force the world to lean in. The moment you stop justifying, you force others to recalculate. This isn't manipulation. It's leverage. The weak chase approval. The strong let approval chase them. Think of the most feared men in history. They didn't announce their power. They radiated it. Hannibal didn't send memos before crossing the Alps. He appeared where Rome least expected. Rockefeller didn't explain his monopolies. He built them in silence. Bruce Lee didn't argue about philosophy. He moved, and the world studied him. You don't convince people of your strength. You condition them to feel it. Here's how. 1. Replace words with tension. When someone demands an explanation, pause. Let the silence stretch just a second too long. Then answer, not with reasons, but with a question of your own. Why do you need to know? What do you think? Shift the burden back onto them. Make them justify their curiosity. 2. Let your absence speak louder than your presence. The more you show up, the more they take you for granted. The more you disappear, the more they question their position. Disappear strategically, not in anger, in control. Let them wonder, did I offend him? Is he planning something? Their uncertainty becomes your advantage. 3. Master the unreadable response. When challenged, most men react. The powerful recalibrate. If insulted, smile slightly, as if you know something they don't. If pressured, glance away, as if their words aren't worth your full attention. If questioned, answer with silence. Then change the subject entirely. The goal isn't to intimidate. It's to condition them to seek your approval. 4. Speak in consequences, not excuses. Weak men say, let me explain why this happened. Powerful men say, here's what happens next. One apologizes, the other commands. Your words should move the game forward, not rehash the past. The silent reversal. How to turn the tables without saying a word. Most conflicts aren't won by out-arguing. They're won by outlasting. When someone tries to drag you into a debate, slow your breathing. Hold eye contact a beat too long. Let them fill the silence. They'll either double down and look desperate, backtrack and lose ground, or crumble under the weight of their own uncertainty. You remain unshaken, because power isn't about having the last word. It's about making sure your silence is the loudest thing in the room. Part 9. The final lesson, power resides in the unsaid. Machiavelli didn't write The Prince to be liked. He wrote it to win. And winning isn't about fairness. It's about force. Not brute force, psychological force. The kind that makes men adjust before you've even acted. Here's the ultimate truth. The most powerful thing you can say is often nothing at all. Let them speculate. Let them overthink. Let them waste energy decoding you while you act. Because history isn't written by the men who explain themselves best. It's written by the men who left no need for explanation. If this message hit deeper than you expected, comment below. I control the silence. And if you're ready to stop performing power and start becoming it, subscribe. Not for more words, but for the unspoken strategies that separate kings from pawns. Thanks for being with us.